Hello, this is your instructor. I'm going to show you how to draw the base bracket in 3D. The thickness of the three parts we're going to make are 7/16. That'll be the base, the back, and the triangular wedge that fits right in the middle of the part. The back surface has two slots, the bottom surface has two holes, and it doesn't take very long to do. Just be aware that the top view does show portions of the back of the object, and the front view does show portions of the bottom of the object. We will be needing all three views to do this. In order to protect the original drawing you have made, make a copy of everything so you can work off to the side. Let's temporarily take off our dimensions, our center lines, and our hidden lines. If you haven't made a layer already for 3D, go ahead and do so. I made one and made it the color orange, which is the color 30. Let's take off our dimensions. I don't need these parts of this upper object. And then for the bottom, I don't need the bottom half of this. I'll need to trim that. Some of our commands for editing may or may not be up here, but to find them, you might have to use the down arrow here to find trim, for example. Trim off the part, or remove the parts we don't need for all these different features. Okay, so now, oh, I don't need this either. So let's begin. We're going to switch to a southwest isometric so we can see what we're doing. The first command we need is called region, R-E-G-I-O-N. Select all these objects to turn them into solid shapes. I apologize, realistic was on. Let me go back to 2D wireframe. The regions will change to the layer which was current. Let's type in region again. Do these here. Enter. Let's type in region again. Enter. What region does is it makes closed, continuous shapes. We're about to use the extrude command to extrude these objects. Let me show you what extrude does to objects that are not closed. Let's say we wanted to extrude this, but we didn't region. It makes what's called a wireframe. That's not a solid object. So that also happens if there's a break in the object but you don't notice it, and you try to extrude, you'll also have this wireframe effect, which is incorrect. Make sure your objects are completely closed, which is why we use the region command. Let me undo this so that I can keep that its integrity when we finish the drawing. Alright, so the thickness is 7/16, so I'll type in extrude, or I pick this object right here. I'll select this object. I'll also pick the holes. I'm extruding all three items separately. I could do them all at the same time actually. Let's just go ahead and do that. Okay, since they all happen to be the same thickness. Type in 7/16, and there's all of our objects. However, they're not complete. We do need to subtract out the holes and slots. If I turn on the color, you'll see that all features are within each other. So let's go back to 2D wireframe. The command we use to subtract is called subtract. We'll work with the base first. Subtract, select this object, hit enter, and then pick the small features, which are the holes, and hit enter. And let's see how we did. There are the holes. Let's take off the realistic, go to 2D wireframe to subtract this feature. Whoops, I picked all three. Can't do that. Hit escape. Subtract, pick the large one, enter, and then the two slots, and then enter. Our subtractions are done, and we're going to use a command called align, A-L-I-G-N. I'll leave the color on for this purpose. To align, what we do is we move features from one to another. The command is called align. To use align, we need to use 3 points along a nonlinear plane to move onto the surface. For example, the bottom of this will fit on the top of that. So I have some reference points I could use, the four corners, the midpoints of the object. Let me show you what a line does if you just use one point. I type in a line, select the object and hit enter. My mouse will say specify first source point. If I pick here and click to here where I want it to go and just hit enter a couple times, it'll move, and that's all that align command does. Let me undo that. If you don't see your messages on your mouse, make sure that dynamic input is on. If that dynamic input is not visible here, click on this triple bar and turn on dynamic input. Alright, let's continue. If I align with just 2 points, it allows me to move and scale the object. I'm going to do this incorrectly to show you what I mean. So I'll move this point to here. I'll put this point here and snap to the midpoint of the part. The mouse is going to ask me, after I hit enter, do I want to scale the objects? If I say yes, not only does it move it, but also scales it down to the distance in which I place that object. Useful for some things. For this drawing, it's not. So let's undo that. The other align command that I want you to use is a 3-point alignment. Type in a line, select this object, and let's use 3 points. We're going to use the first point to here, the second point to here, and the third point, I had to make sure it says endpoint, and the third point is not going to be here, otherwise it'll keep it flat. I need to force it to flip up. In order to do that, I have 2 choices. I could put this corner along this edge, or this corner along this edge. You're probably thinking, well, there's no line that's exactly 7/16 over here for me to place. That's okay, it doesn't matter. As long as it's aligned with this edge. So I'll pick this corner, which represents this line now, and be along this edge here. So I could pick, for example, this midpoint. You'll see it move and rotate. Alright? Now, of course, we want to make sure that worked, so we have to do 2 things. Take off the color, make sure that the lines are directly on each other, and they are. Alright, to move this to here, we need to do the same thing, snapping points. However, at times we don't have features on here in which we could do that. We may. Let's find out. For example, I know that the top of this midpoint will snap to the midpoint of this feature. The midpoint of this will snap to the midpoint of this feature, and this would have to snap to the midpoint of this feature. However, it looks like there's some lines overlapping each other right here, so we might need to rotate this so we can see which lines we need to snap onto. You see that right there? That's important. So if you pick the wrong snap points, your alignment may not work. So let's give it a shot. Let's move this closer so we can see it. Take off my ortho for a bit. Alright, let's try this. Align. Select the object, hit enter. Find the midpoint of this to there. This belongs along the middle of this line. And the midpoint of this belongs to the middle of that line. Let's find out if it works. And fortunately we did. Let's take a look at our object. Looking good. Now we got to realize these are 3 separate parts. We need to union them together to turn it into one solid object. So pick union, select these 3 objects, and hit enter. And now we have our part. Pretty cool. Alright. Let's go back to Southwest Isometric. Okay, so the object has to be displayed with our 2-dimensional drawing. If you go to your paper space, you'll see the view is actually looking from the top view. We need to get this orientation in a isometric view. There's 2 ways to approach that. I'm going to teach you a new one at this point. But before we discuss it, we need to decide which isometric view do we want. Do we want the Southwest isometric or the, not that one, Northwest, Northeast, southeast isometric. So let's figure this out before we start. Our front view and our right side view are displayed here, which means our isometric of the 3D object needs to be the front and the right. That looks like the southeast isometric right here. Alright, so here comes a new concept. I need to turn on the viewport layer. We're going to be using that again. Here's the viewport for everything you see here. See that? Okay. I'll click outside so I can grab my viewport. I'm going to pull the viewport down here a little bit. I can still control my object when I click inside. However, I need to click outside and create a new viewport so I can display just this object by itself. So watch carefully. Type in mView on the viewport layer. I'm going to draw a rectangle opposite corners using the mView command and break a second viewport. I'm doing this for a reason, and you'll see now why. I'm going to click on this corner once I get inside the viewport and change it to southeast isometric. I'll make sure that hidden is on in this case. Let me just show you what the other ones look like. But we're going to use with no color, so hidden would be that feature. But notice how in this viewport I can control the appearance of this, and in this viewport I can control the appearance of this. I can make this viewport a little bit larger. Should turn ortho back on to do this. And I know there's some unusual details to work with around here, but it should work out when we print it out. So let's talk about those issues. First of all, as you can see, this viewport is replacing or covering part of my lines over here. And if I try to adjust them, then this feature will pop up again behind this one. So I would probably go over here and move this farther away. So that this is alone, kind of like that. So over here, I got to go find that 3D view, so I'll do a zoom extends. Move it in closer, and then type in zoom 1 XP, see if that's not too large. Yep, that looks too large. Let's type in 3/4 XP, Z enter 3/4 XP. Now we're scaling the drawing is what we're doing there. Let's move it slightly off to the side. I could take this viewport, click outside. I could take this viewport and place it on the corner here and click back inside. It has some more room over here. Whoops. I'm using the pan command, not scale. I'm not zooming in around. Now for this viewport, making this a little smaller. And over here, in this viewport, better put my layers back on. So I'll type in Z enter, 3/4 XP enter. Because that was a scale I used for here. Now both of my viewports are scaled. I believe we could take out the viewports. Let's see. Did I not put this? Oh, I did not put that on the viewport layer. Now it's on the viewport layer. Okay. Now I know a little feature is missing right here. Let's see if I can print and the viewports disappear. Let's verify this right now. Nope, there's an issue right there. So let's see what's going on here. I might have to play with this viewport. Put the viewports back on. I don't want this to be too much work for you guys. I can see some dimensions in that viewport, in that drawing I need to remove. Right there. Drafting is never easy, right? There it is right there. Now I can see everything here. Everything here. Let's turn off the viewport layer. Let's print this. See what we have. Alright, unfortunately my color is still showing up as color even though I chose monochrome. I'm going to quickly change all my layers to white so I could see this just a little better. Let me select everything. Sorry, title block, you're going to be white too. Let's take a look at the print preview now, see if it's behaving the way I expect it to. Yes, there it is. So I know you can't really see those really well, but it prints properly. The dimensions, the object, orthographic, the isometric. Drawn from a two-dimensional drawing. Alright, we'll stop the video right here. Have fun with that one.